Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another One Piece review. This time we're covering manga chapter 1181. Oda decided to follow the same formula as the previous chapter when hyping up Emu, only in this case, Emu focused it on facing Loki, which, unlike the previous chapter, was pretty much straightforward and as bare bones as you can get, because that was pretty much the entire focus of this chapter, which was fine. Let's be real here, most of this battle was Emu demolishing Loki, and the only reason why Loki actually got a hit him by the end of the chapter, well, we'll get into that. Let's start off right with the cover page with Carrot, the leader and queen of Zou, who has a jacket with Queen written on and a crown, making her way back to Zou, holding a basket full of carrots. Go figure. If you notice the island that she's come from, it has two buildings resembling carrots, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Also, there's a carrot attached to one of the clouds, if you look real carefully. Speaking of looking carefully, or looking sus, you got panda sharks as carrots walking by. You got 7 in total. You got 3 that are clearly visible sleeping. You got 2 that are clearly awake. Because you got 3 of the panda sharks being stepped on by carrot, and you just know there's a bunch of hardcore carrot fans, mad jealous, mad salty that it should have been me, it should have been me. You know that's what they're thinking. Meanwhile, you got 2 panda sharks in the background, looking very sus, I have to say. One jumping out of the water with a troll grin on his face, looking at Carrot. Then the other looking at Carrot from behind, pause, who looks to be eyeing up more than just the basket of carrots that Carrot's holding, just saying. So, I see what you're doing there, Oda. I see what you're doing there. So, we start off the chapter with Harold's final words to Loki 14 years ago, as it transitions into Loki telling Emu plus us, those who wanted a reminder about the age, when it comes to the age of Elbaf, when it comes to like, oh, my father was 144 years old when he died. Usually, giants live up to 300 years old. I'm guessing Oda added usually because I guess that doesn't apply to Ja Rule since he's over 400 years old. Loki goes on to say, you tricked my dad, that makes you responsible for his death. Well, he's half right as far as the responsible for his death, but as far as like being tricking him, no. Your father did that to himself, bro. I'm sorry. Like, he decided to offer up his own will, and he literally says, I don't care, I'll be your slave, just make Elbaf a part of the world government, and look how that turned out. Just saying. And then Emu responds, the one that suffered from that inconvenience was Mu. Meanwhile, Loki gets triggered by this. He raises up Ragnir so he can charge it up with his signature Thor technique and strike Emu, but it doesn't really do anything to Emu because Emu blocks it with his Omen attack and basically just tanks the attack like nothing and has 0 impact on Emu. But you see the impact it's having elsewhere, and this is only a few exceptions that Oda focuses on elsewhere, but it's not really, it's very brief, because we've got a panel of Lilf and little Bonnie trying to hold Sanji from being blown away. Meanwhile, you got in the other panel, you got Jinbei, Frankie and Nami affected by this. That's pretty much all we get until Luffy later on. Then Loki comes in and says, I can't believe you tanked that. He asks, what's with these black flames? What power do you have? And Emu actually gives us an explanation, or at least Oda does through Emu. Omen is simply Mu's military might, so that's his military offense. It's very vague as far as what he explains, because Loki is like yelling gigantification, because I'm guessing because the Omen attack expands inside, and like I said, his attacks have phases on them, so it resembles Big Mom's homies. But with Emu's case, it seems a lot darker and a lot bigger upgrade, honestly. But Emu goes on to say, its power dwells in all things. As these two clash with their weapons, it results in a hockey clash, which, in mid-attack, Emu kind of transforms his weapon into a sword, which I thought was pretty badass. I guess he manipulates the Omen to transform into a sword. He pierces Loki with attack called Nemesis, which I thought was badass. Now, I don't know if Oda is kind of like revealing he's a fan of Resident Evil as well. I thought this was a badass name for his attack. Nemesis gets stabbed. He's lucky to get stabbed in the throat, much like his role model, Zebek. And it pierces his body, and you see the extent of how big this sword actually is. Like, it impales Loki and goes into the ground. Imu goes on to say, strength is something that people naturally crave. That craving can easily be satisfied through corruption. All it requires is one to submit their will to convenience, which is exactly what Harold did back in the day. Because I mean, Loki can blame Imu for that, but that's pretty much all on King Harold. So that's how the convent works. You offer up your will. When their envy drives them, they achieve power. Those things together form a trinity, that being known as dominion. So he's offering Loki to give him the power of a god that will surpass far above humanity. And Loki's response is, oh, so that's it. That's your power. Like, God's dominion, that's your power. It sounds like a deal with the devil to me, which kind of goes with what we found out about Imu's, the name of his devil fruit, considering it's the Akuma no Mi, aka the devil fruits, which is not a devil fruit, it's the devil fruit. That would make sense. Plus, he has the status of a god. So you combine the god with the power of the devil, pretty much, which I know a lot of people want to make this a reference about an L, but this is a much higher upgrade, in my opinion. But Loki goes on to say, I don't want it, as he goes to try and attack Imu again. But Imu responds, is there a difference between a god and a devil? Loki's like, I just know I ain't going to let myself be dominated by anyone. Well, you better put in the work then, because so far you get kind of getting owned here. But then Imu continues on with his monologue. The world itself rejoices in a state of dominion. Then Imu proceeds to pull a Kipbu and yell this out, isn't that right, Joy Boy? And as Imu was screaming, you see the hockey sparks being unleashed. And this immediately gets the attention of Luffy, who is still munching away on the food, but as you can clearly see, he's no longer in his old state form from using Gear 5th. He's actually replenished it to normal Luffy, only he's a little more bloated now. He's still eating, which is a theme of these past few chapters. But he's like, I gotta hurry, I gotta eat, I gotta hurry, I gotta get full up, because he knows the danger of this power being unleashed. So this is where Imu turns his attention to Nika Joy Boy, which allows Loki to actually get a hit in on Loki. Like I mentioned before, Imu was completely distracted and focused on Luffy, so much that Loki actually got a hit in and sent him flying into the giant Yggdrasil tree that makes up Elbaf. I mean, he gets slammed, but if you paid attention and read between the lines of these next few panels here, yeah, he doesn't get a hit in, but if you notice, after you see the impact crater from where he lands, the next panel you see Imu noticing something. He looks to the right. Then we see Loki go into his Nihog zone form, charging up a Thorheim attack to land on Imu. But Imu at the last split second conjures up a Omen to shield him from the attack. And you see him tank the attack. Then you see Imu mention, thou has really returned. And he's on about, we know who he's on about. And then you see this motherfucker for the first time ever with a smile on his face as the chapter ends. Now, granted, we've only just got introduced to his appearance a couple of chapters ago, but this is the first time we're seeing him smile. And that's pretty terrifying, to be honest with you. But that's how Oda decides to end the chapter, with this motherfucker smiling. It's hysteric because he's about to run the fade with Joy Boy, only in this case it's Luffy. So, I mean, we don't get to see it, but you can leave it to the interpretation of what we're going to get here. So like I said, this chapter was very straightforward, very bare bones. Outside of a couple panels, this chapter really focused on Loki versus Imu, which is fine, and it does make things a lot easier to go through, especially if you're looking to catch up with the Elbaf arc in the manga. So this was a very straightforward chapter. That being said, if you read between the lines and look through the context and actually look at this objectively without being a hardcore Loki fan, I'm sorry. This goes back to what I said in the previous chapter. Even though Loki was the only one at this point in the game that could stand up to Imu, I still didn't like Loki's chances. And outside of one attack, pretty much Loki was getting owned. I'm sorry, that was pretty much Loki getting owned from the get-go. You see Emu casually avoiding every attack, nailing Loki with attacks that Loki couldn't do anything about until Emu was all about running the fade with Joy Boy. In 2 instances, Luffy gets his attention. One, obviously, the first is before he screams, when, in my opinion, he knows Luffy's haki being replenished, because obviously he's filling himself up, getting himself back to normal. The second time, obviously, was at the end of the chapter, where you see a panel of him noticing something before Loki tries to land a Thorheim attack. I'm sorry, just like how Zoro and Sanji fans, and no, it's not one or the other, it's both. Both the Zoro and Sanji fan base had to take the L. I don't know why there was a debate. Both of them got owned. Both of them can do nothing. But it was needed because A, it hypes up Emu big time. And nor should he be struggling with the likes of Zoro and Sanji if he's meant to believe he's going to be the final villain of the series. I'll get to that in a second. Number 2, most importantly, is Zoro and Sanji needed this because it gives them something to work for. It gives them something to overcome because they know they're not at that level. They're not at that level, so they need to work themselves up. And that goes for everybody else in the Straw Hats. Due to what I saw, and again, it's fine if you're a hardcore Loki fan and you think Loki has aura, that's fine. But in my opinion, Loki falls into that category as well. Outside of one attack, and the only reason he landed that was because Emu got casually distracted by Luffy. It's going to be interesting to see where Oda goes with this, because, yeah, you get the implication that Oda's having Luffy go to Gear 5th, but we don't get to see it. Now, it'd be one thing if Oda has Luffy show up at the beginning of the next chapter, but I don't see that being the case. We could get a situation where other giants from Elbaf show up to back up Loki, but I don't like this going in Loki's favour. I get a team up to where we started off with, when it looked like we were going to get Gunko against Luffy and Loki. We could get that with Emu in the flesh, literally. With this situation here, when it comes to Luffy, this is what makes things a lot more unpredictable when it comes to Luffy versus Emu. And why I wouldn't mind having this be 1v1. It could end up 2v1, especially with the way that Loki is, but I don't know. It depends if Oda has Luffy join in at the beginning of the next chapter, or if Oda waits it out to make this 1v1. And that's where things get unpredictable, because in one instance, if Emu already knew that Luffy was the reincarnation of Joy Boy, and Loki had the Needhog form, the legendary devil fruit that made him into a Needhog he heard about, but yet he still came to Elbaf anyway. Despite the trouble that Gunko would have had, Emu still came in the flesh to take care of this himself. So you're not going to do that if this is just going to be Luffy's just going to one-shot Emu. No, this makes things a lot more unpredictable now. Oda have it in him. Does he have the guts to actually have either Emu lose or Luffy lose in Gear 5th on Elbaf? The reason why this makes it unpredictable, Oda could drop all the Easter eggs he wants about Emu, filling this appearance and his full name, but the fact of the matter is, unless we get some type of exposition or some type of in-depth look as to the importance of the Nerona family or the Nerona lineage, it's not going to mean as much unless we figure out why that's important to the overall story or the overall series. What that means as far as the connection with Joy Boy. We saw one panel of Joy Boy and Emu from back in the day. There has to be some type of reveal of why that's important. So until we get that, Oda could be as slick as he wants by thinking, I'm going to save myself some trouble and reveal the name of Emu in full and the appearance, but that's not going to cut it. So you can drop all the Easter eggs you want, but until we get that, Emu's not dying. Luffy already died technically on Wano, so Luffy's not dying here. It's just a case of which one's taking the L on Elbaf. 1v1 involving Emu and Luffy in Gear 5th makes things a hell of a lot more unpredictable. 2v1, I'm not too sure if Oda's going to go that route. So for hype purposes, I think it would be absolutely insane and really put things over the top if Emu actually finds a way to fend off both Loki and Luffy. Now, for another chapter in a row, we don't get to see Robin, but to be fair, like I said earlier, this was a straightforward and bare bones chapter focusing on Loki versus Luffy, so there's a whole lot of characters we didn't get to see here. I do have to wonder where that plot point is going as far as the books of O'Hara disappearing, if that's going to tie in at all to the ending of Elbaf. Like I said, adds a dash of unpredictability as far as Does Oda have the guts to have either Emu lose or Luffy lose in Gear 5th? That's the question here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, you guys know what to do. Hit that thumbs up. I appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys' support when it comes to these One Piece reviews. Catch you guys later. Take it easy, guys. Bye.